Good morning, Jon Mutchler here. It's a little bit breezy and drizzly, but I'm glad that you're here. I am the pastor at the Ferndale Alliance Church, and the title of our message this morning from Matthew 5:22 is Anger and the Proximity Principle. Anger and the Proximity Principle, which is basically this, that the closer we are to someone, the greater the potential anger. The closer we are to somebody, the greater anger that we could manifest. Here's our verse again. And as I read it, I want you to note the word brother. Matthew 5:22. Jesus says, I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. This is an important issue with Jesus, and I want to speak for a moment about the word brother. Now, it says here brother and sister. That's a modern translation update of the New International Version Bible. In the original text, it would have just said brother. It's the Greek word adelphios. There was a city at the time of Christ in the first century called Philadelphia. Phil means love. Adelphia means brother, the city of brotherly love. And of course, there were a lot of American cities named after Bible cities at our founding. So Philadelphia, we find it mentioned in Revelations chapter 1 and chapter 3. And by the way, it was a pretty cool place. Jesus speaks to 7 churches in Revelations 1 through 3, and he really rips them pretty hard, except for 2. And Philadelphia is one of the cities, the city of brotherly love. Phil, love. Adelphia, brotherly. He gives them great commendation. And so the word here, Jesus says, I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother, and again the NIV updated it to brother and sister, is guilty and subject to judgment. Now, I think that's kind of interesting because Jesus could have said the following words, and I don't think we would have flinched. He could have said, if anyone is angry with an enemy, right? Doesn't he later on, towards the end of chapter 5 in Matthew, he says, love your, the next word, love your enemies. He says, it's easy to love people that are like you. Even the tax collectors love their fellow tax collectors or love their family members, people that love them. It's easy to love people that are like you, is what he's saying there. But we are to love our enemies. And it's fascinating to me here that he says that we are to not be angry with those that are our brothers or sisters. And I think he leaves it rather open-ended here. I mean, what does he mean? Does he mean literal biological brother? Sure. But I think he also means those that are part of our congregation, part of our religious life. We often call them brothers and sisters, or part of our community. And I suspect for Jesus, he would include people of Israel, your brothers and sisters of your country. You are not to be angry with. In other words, Jesus leaves it rather open-ended. Whomever you consider your brother, and that's why adding sister is fine with me, brother and sister. Back in the old days, I think we understood words like brother to include everybody. It's like when Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon, he talked about a giant leap for mankind. I guess that would be sexist language today, but we knew what he meant when he said mankind. It meant everyone. And Jesus is saying that we ought not to be angry with people that we would consider brothers or sisters, people that are close to us. And here's my main point, that the closer that we are to someone, the greater the potential anger. When things go sideways, when there's a fight, a disappointment, a betrayal, when there's a divorce, that is when the greatest potential for anger and bitterness and hurt can occur. It can bring about unspeakable and even sometimes deadly anger. Do you know that most murders are committed by people close to the victim? I looked this up. I was kind of curious. Murders, homicides in our country, 22% are committed by family members, 7% by a boyfriend or a girlfriend, 45% by friends or acquaintances, by strangers. This is what's left, 26% committed by strangers. So 3/4 of actual murder, homicides, are committed by people who know the person that's being killed. These are statistics from the Bureau of Justice I looked at. How about this current issue about Black Lives Matter? And of course, Black Lives Matter. But let me ask you a question, and maybe you know the answer already. How many blacks, unarmed blacks that are not resisting arrest, are killed annually by police? It's less than a dozen. But if you talk about black homicides, African American, usually men, usually young men, being killed, being shot, being knifed, being beaten to death annually, the numbers are staggering. And here is the sad part of it all. It's always sad, but it's especially sad because most black homicide victims are killed by fellow black men. They call it black on black crime. Can I suggest that Jesus is ahead of the curve here? He's saying, deal with anger at the personal level, the closeness level, the proximity level, because it can escalate into terrible things, and we see it escalating into murder all the time. And that's why Jesus here is focusing on brothers. Let's talk about some of our relationships and how that takes place. What anger looks like. The family. I suspect most of us have been in a situation where we have been very, very angry with a family member. You know, I know of more than one situation where adult children, because of anger, because words were said and not resolved, will not allow their children to see their grandparents. Think about that. And some of you go, yeah, I know people like that. That the parents will not allow the young children to see the grandparents. Or there's estrangement and hurt among family members. And it's especially ugly. And all too often, most people don't remember what the original cause was. It's been long forgotten, but the anger seethes and stews and ferments and continues on and on and on. How about at work? How about at work? There may be a fellow worker. Something was said, something was done, and you can't stand seeing them. And when you walk in the front door of the factory or the business and you see that person, you become angry all over again. I hate to say it, it happens in church too. Church is a place where conflicts occur. It's part of church life, and is a fabulous place, context, and environment to learn how to get along with people. But it does happen because churches deal with some of the most intimate, controversial, sensitive, and emotional issues of life. Life and death, parenting, children, education, marriage, divorce, remarriage, addictions, teen pregnancy, just about everything. Church deals with everything, and so it's not surprising that there can be anger. Set aside even just the theological differences that we have sometimes. And so it's not surprising to me that Jesus, in dealing with anger, brings it as close to home as he says. And he says, you should not be angry with your brother without cause, or with your sister. Later on in the Bible, and we've mentioned this before, Ephesians 4:26 says, do not let the sun go down on your anger. You need to deal with it. We'll talk a little bit at the end about how we can start dealing with anger. Public life as an elected official at times was a challenge in dealing with my own personal anger. I served 10 years, partly as a council member and 4 years as a mayor. And I learned very quickly, once you are elected to office, you are no longer treated like a human being or a person. You are, quite frankly, a target of hate for some people. Now, to be fair, I made a tremendous amount of friends while I was serving the community in that way. Long-lasting friendships, relationships that I still have today and value and enjoy so much. But there were some people that did not like me. I don't know if I ever figured out why. It could have been just as simple as partisanship. There was this one guy, I'm going to call him George, that was not his name, but he would always write the most vicious and unkind and horrible and untrue things about me. He'd say them to people personally, or he'd write them in posts. And, I don't know if I was ever very angry with him. I more pitied him. I just felt bad for him. I thought, you're just kind of lost. And he died not so long ago, just a few months ago. And when I heard that he died, I just felt bad that he had that demon in him of just wanting to express seething anger towards people that were in public office. But I never felt angry towards George. However, during my public service, I lost some friendships. A handful of people who did not like decisions I made, positions I took, policies that I supported. And sadly, these were people that I thought at times were genuine friends, people whose friendships I valued, people that I broke bread with at times. And our friendship went sideways. And again, mostly from what I can tell, and I tried to investigate these things, I didn't let them just sit. I tried to find out. It was policies that I took, decisions that I made as a public official. And they began making false accusations to people and in print and online against me. Now, the earlier person, George, his comments were worse. They were just ugly and toxic and profane and foul-mouthed. They were really rancid. But I don't think I was ever angry about George. But my former friends, when they wrote the things that they did, it made me angry. It made me angry. And again, it came back to this idea that the closer you are to people, the greater the potential anger. So my big point today, I think you get it, is that the most destructive kind of anger is anger in the home, anger in the church, and anger in the community. And by the way, if you have a special need to be angry about people way far away. Be mad at the people in Chicago or Seattle or Portland or Atlanta, or how about Philadelphia? Go ahead and be mad about those people. There's plenty to be mad about. But local and close, it's a bad idea. Again, Jesus says you'll be subject to judgment. It must be serious. Do not be angry with your brothers, or you'll be subject to judgment. So what do? One thing you can do. This is the first step. This is the big step. And this will go a long ways in dealing with hurt and anger. When you walk into work and you see that person you're mad at, when you see that or you hear about that relative that you don't want to talk to, or you just run across a person that you're furious with, name it to yourself. Say, I am angry with this person, and name it to God. God, I'm angry with this person. Help me to deal with that anger. Just that one step. Name it, admit it, confess it. It's using Christian language. We confess it and ask God for his help, and see how far that will get you, okay? Thank you for watching today, and we'll be back soon, and we appreciate you watching these videos. Please share them and like them, and if you want, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Have a great day.